Wherever you are, welcome to Remote AF and welcome to all the remote things. I have the great pleasure on this streaming event to welcome Lynne Cazaly. Fantastic to have you here, Lynne.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. And hello. Hello to all those on board, listening, dialed in, doing whatever
Fantastic.
you're doing.
Yeah, we've been sitting here waiting to press all the buttons, so that's been fantastic. Let me just give you a little background on Lynne. Lynne's a work futurist. She's an expert in modern work. She's a magic facilitator with the pens. She's an international keynote speaker. I could go on, but most importantly, she's a very good friend of mine as well. And she's an author, and she's written a fantastic book amongst a million of other books that she's written. And I'm probably not exaggerating there because she writes more books than you can imagine, which is Sync Async. And of course, being a remote community, that's going to be fantastic for us. Welcome, Lynne. I'm going to step back and let you talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Yes, I have been, I don't know if it's teased or it's been commented, oh, Lynne, you're up to book number 438, but I'm up to book number 10, but it's not about the numbers. It's that I have found an avenue for my thinking. And I reckon if you're a speaker or you're a coach or, you play a sport or wherever you ride a bike, whatever you do, where you find a kind of avenue to think and to express your ideas, then go for it. And so for me, writing from a career in communications, I've found that I could write. And once I thought, oh, wow, you can use writing in your business, just went, blah. So my mentor some years ago said, Lynne, I challenge you to write a book a year for 10 years. It doesn't matter if it's self-published, publisher-published, that is irrelevant. It's the fact that you keep putting your ideas out there and you keep letting them evolve and iterate. Funny about that. And that's what I've done. So when I could have half a dozen books on the go at once, but then one of them will really grab for me. I'll go, ooh, that's I'm interested in that. So it's about what interest and energy I have about it. And I tell you, Sync Async, it was early 2022, and there are a couple of articles coming out in the business press that was saying, remote work, we're not really doing it well. We've just shifted the office online and everyone's exhausted and no one knows how to lead a meeting properly. And of course, all the agile people around the world are going, we've been doing this for years. We know how to do remote stuff. I think agile coaches and scrum masters and product owners around the world were kind of laughing at the corporate world, going, you've never been listening to us, you mongrels, just saying, we've been doing this remote thing for years. We know how to lead teams. We know how to communicate remotely. So I don't know if people have been listening to you or not, but I reckon here on this topic of asynchronous work, there is such the opportunity. So today I thought I'd share some of the information that I present to the corporate world and to get you thinking about how you might be able to lead some of the people that you work with through this way of thinking on synchronous and asynchronous work. It's not one or the other. Of course, it's going to be both. So today, this is, Tony, you mentioned good on the pens. Well, this is this logo that I created for Sync Async. I could show you all the earlier drafts on my iPad where I was trying to work out, I want to do the cover of the book myself. How will I create this? And some of the early versions were pretty unattractive. But then I hit on this one drawing tool using the Procreate app on the iPad. And this is actually the tool that draws hair. So if you were illustrating in Procreate and you chose this, I think it's under the label of organic, there's options for skin and there's short hair and stubble and all of these things for drawing people. And I saw this and I went, yes, this is what synchronous and asynchronous work is about. It's like we're together, we're heading in the same direction, we're doing some of the same things, but we're not all doing it at exactly the same time. We might not all be in perfect alignment. So you'll see some of the strokes are a little bit off here and there. There's always an outlier, isn't there? There's always someone who doesn't quite follow the process. There's someone who leads it, you know, and then generally other people come along after it. So what I thought I'd do is share some of these thoughts. Love to get questions, comments, compliments, complaints through whatever area you're viewing this session. Feel free, drop it in the chat box. I always welcome that sort of thing. Any question, anytime, although we will probably check out the questions towards the end.
Very good, very good. So I'll take those on if you're dropping them. We'll get you to hold your powder, and I'll make sure there is definitely time for Lynne to talk to you at the end.
Great. Great to hear. So this is referencing a book I published last year called Async, and making progress easier in the changing world of work. And behind this, of course, is the thinking from the art of facilitation, the action of facilitating things, not necessarily standing at the front of a room or leading a meeting, but the act of facilitation is about ease of progress. So this book brings in some of the principles of how we can work together at the same time and also separately at other times, asynchronously, to achieve good things. And plenty of reading about this, which I'll highlight in a moment. But the thing that I believe primarily asynchronous work solves for us are these three problems. The first one is there's so much information, there's so much stuff going on in our workplace, and I would categorize that as data. Too many, too long, and too dull meetings, and they just suck the life out of us. They're not collaborative or participative enough. Some cultures and workplaces, of course, they have a great meeting culture, but most of them are pretty poorly led, or they're dominated by, you know, lone voices, or they go off on tangents. And when I've been running facilitation training, this is a big thing people mention, is that the meeting culture is unwieldy and it's dysfunctional. So yeah, plenty of articles and media around how meeting culture is broken, basically. And if we think we can fix it by sending everyone on a Run Better Meetings course, well, it's just not going to change quickly enough. It's not changing. It hasn't changed in centuries. And our current meeting processes are based on old parliamentary processes. So it's the meeting culture, the way we run meetings, just isn't changing fast enough. So my view is we have to do something else. One of the other problems is interruptions. We lack that, a good run of uninterrupted time, what I would call clear air. I sailed with my father on Port Phillip Bay here in Melbourne, and we would always be tacking away from the rest of the fleet looking for clear air, because clear air flowing over your sails makes you go fast. And to me, seeing this in the workplace, you just see people starting to get a little bit of momentum, but then they get interrupted. They get interrupted by, yeah, look, could I just have a quick chat? Are you free? Are you there? Could we have a quick chat? And no chat is ever quick. It always takes ages. And I also think we have what I would call breached boundaries, that you might say, even a team might say, hey, we're going to have Tuesday afternoon, meeting free afternoon, but someone will come along with, oh, yeah, this is a really important meeting. And then that boundary gets breached. So even when we have good intentions around asynchronous work, we can still get interrupted. And then the third problem, I think, that feeling of overtime, of no time. So the overwork, the stress, the guilt, the burnout, some of the things I've been reading in recent weeks, just the issue's not remedying. It's not resolving itself. People go away for a short holiday, they come back, the workload's the same, you know, the culture's the same, nothing's changed. And I think we do hope that we might have a winter holiday in the Southern Hemisphere and then a summer holiday in the Northern Hemisphere. And when we come back, everything will have magically changed. And it doesn't. Yeah. So we've got to do something to remedy these problems. So a big part of this, of course, from Agile peeps is that they know this is about mindset first. And the old mindset would say, when we've got work to do, there is only one way to do this work. But we know there are many, many ways to break work down, to slice work, to start at different points and to complete work in different ways. So our mindset, isn't it? It's much more about, there have to be other ways to do this work. So when we're laid up with some of these problems, I think this is the mindset we can take first of all, to say, yes, there is perhaps a dependence on synchronous work. That is, we have to come to a meeting now. People love them for control, for power, for influence, for their work. Some people say they love meetings, that their work is all meetings. Their work is all about synchronous work in the now. And so to be even talking about this topic can make some people feel uncomfortable, but no, works just fine, thanks. But the newer mindset says, we know there are other ways that we can do this work. Some of the great reading on this includes stuff from the Sloan Management Review, where they reported on the research from companies that were implementing no meeting days. And across the board, I expand on this in my book, going through all of the outcomes from this research. All of them found benefits and increases in well-being and in their ability to sleep at night, and also their just enjoyment at work and their ability to bring creative thinking. So it's just releasing some of that pressure of always having to be on, always looking at the camera in an online call, or always in a room with other people. Again, a shout out, hello to the extroverts who love that, but there's a whole bunch of introverts, looking the other way, going out for a coffee, looking at their phone, saying, please rescue me from this hell. That is the culture that wants to have meetings. So I like this phrase here where they say it's about finding an optimal weekly balance, and you need some deliberation. So your team or your organization, like doing this stuff organization-wide is a big, big cultural shift. But doing this independently or individually or in a smaller team, it's a much easier get. It's a much easier get to do more work in less meetings. And I think when the Harvard Business Review starts publishing themes and topics, then it's really hitting the masses. And this one, I love that. Dear manager, you're holding too many meetings. My view is cancel or decline or delete 1 in 3 meetings over the next week. Like, that's some really rapid advice, is just push back straight away on 1 in 3 invitations that you get. And I can go through some of the language you can use or the scripting to get out of meetings, first of all, but also if you get pushed back on, why are we having this meeting? Where's the agenda? What's it about? What do you need me there for? How you might be able to respond to that. Fast Company also talking about that, the apps that they use and reporting on people being less stressed. And this last point here in the promo for the article allows for a wider talent pool. So we're letting and allowing a greater inclusive culture. You can get more people involved. If I pause on this for a minute, where the impetus for writing this book came from was I was putting up my hand to join a particular committee. I know usually you get roped into it, come on, join this committee. But I said, oh no, I really want to be interested and involved in this group, this international group. And I'd filled out all the details and had a bit of an interview with them. And then they said, look, you're in Australia and the rest of our committee, we're already covering 5 or 6 time zones. So sorry, we can't have you on the committee because you're just not in the right time zone. And what? What do you mean I can't participate? I'm volunteering. I can't participate because of geography. I'm living in the wrong place, and you've already got enough people from other time zones. And yeah, I was pretty miffed about that. But I have also found that where one is miffed about something, one can find inspiration. And if I'm annoyed by it, you can bet that someone else is probably annoyed by it as well. And so I started writing in my notebook all of the things that I thought I could do apart from going on a call at a synchronous time. I said, I don't mind waking up at 4 o'clock and doing these monthly committee meetings. It's not ideal, but I said, I don't think I need to do that. Here's a bunch of other ways I can participate. But this bunch of other ways was too modern for them. It was too progressive. And they're not even that progressive, these ways. So that's where it started, was I felt excluded from participating in something because I lived in the wrong geography. I love this Steve Glavesky article, "Remote work should be mostly asynchronous." It's such a great article that goes through the detail, and I quote it several times in the book. So what am I talking about here? And to really identify, synchronous work is saying it's in real time, it's in the now, we're together now. That means it's a meeting, it's a call, it's an interview, it's a chat. When people say, do you want to catch up? It's because we're coming together. Status meetings, and any of these could be online or they could be in person, and they could be small group things or large group things. Or I was speaking at an all hands, all staff meeting the other day. Talk about an expensive and a complicated production to get this global firm and get everybody in a time zone where they weren't sitting up at 3 a.m. But I'm sure we've either done it ourselves, we've been awake at a ridiculous time, and then it mucks up the rest of your week. Your sleep suffers, your life suffers, and there are better ways. There are better ways. And so let's have a look down the bottom here then. Asynchronous work, this is more about at a time and in a way that's more flexible, more suitable. Yes, we know about things like messaging. We know about things like shared documents. But go further, think about visual collaboration tools that are open, that people can contribute to. Task boards, written procedures and wikis. Having blocked time in your diary is saying, I will not take a meeting here. I'm prioritizing my work and my life and myself, and I'm going to do some asynchronous work at that time. And any time where you can get uninterrupted free time, even if it's 3 minutes here or 10 minutes there. And anything, of course, that's voice or video or visual. And I love using the voice option to send people a quick voicemail message via the messaging app on their phone. It's such a personalized way to communicate. I don't ring them and then leave a voicemail, because no one listens to voicemails anymore, do they? But I tell you what, a very quick voice message left via a messaging app, getting great cut through with people. So here we go. This, I think, applies to you, and it applies to your team, and it applies to people you're working with, because sometimes it's our colleagues and clients that coerce us into synchronous work. That, we can't start the piece of work until we have a meeting. Let's have a meeting. We've got to have a meeting so I can brief you. Let's get together and have a meeting so I can give you the background. Like, drop a quick message to me. Give me the background verbally. Why do I have to show up to a meeting in real time? And I was planning a session like this with a leadership team, and it took us 3 weeks to have a briefing meeting face-to-face about this topic. And I said, your organisation needs this topic, because it took us 3 weeks to find a time where we could both meet to talk about this topic. The irony was extreme. So I think we've got 3 decisions here. If there were 3 problems I mentioned earlier, here are 3 decisions that you can take right now. The first one is about autonomy, and the lovely Dan Pink talks about it in his book Drive. as one of the things that motivates us. And the fact that I can decide for myself to take actions, I do not need to wait for permission from others. A colleague of mine, Donna McGeorge, she will decree permission granted, right? She'll often say that, permission granted. You don't have to wait for others. You can take this step yourself and kind of reclaim your own power, which comes under the topic of agency. That is, I can start working in a new way. I don't need to wait for others. I can act independently, and I can own this independence that I have to begin working in a new way. And the third thing is that we can start small. We know about experiments. We know about iterations and incremental work. We can start doing some asynchronous stuff on a small scale. So if I was to give you 3 steps from today, 3 actions that you can take, I think one of the biggest things you can do before you start declaring that a whole organization or a whole culture is going to work more asynchronously is start pushing back and declining meetings. Like I said earlier, decline 1 in 3, start to make this something that is acceptable. And by pushing back, you when you get a meeting invite and it says yes, no, maybe, or it says accept, decline, maybe. I love clicking the maybe button and then sending a message. And I'll click the maybe button and then I send a message that says, not love to attend, because I'm trying to find a way that this meeting doesn't have to happen. This synchronous piece of work doesn't have to happen. So I'll say, love to know more about what this meeting's for, when I'm required and what I'm required there for. And this is part of that agency of saying, I'm going to find out why you need me there, because if you haven't told me, it's very passive to just go, oh, they've said, authority says I have to be there, I better be there. And I love it when people start doing this and they push back in advance. So let's say you've got a meeting invite today, respond today, push back fairly swiftly to get more information and to seek alternatives. So you might say, can't make that date, or I can't attend for that 2-hour meeting. What other ways are there for me to contribute? What are some of the alternatives? And of course, if you're the holder or the convener of the meeting, you've got to start offering alternatives. Way too many pieces of synchronous work don't offer an alternative. And that's what's exclusionary. That's what's exclusive about it. And it's not, it's not nice. It's not a great way to seek greater contribution and participation. So push back in advance. Don't push back right at the last minute or even the day before or even 10 minutes before. Because what I'm seeing happening is if you get a few people pushing back on that invite and saying, yeah, this is a maybe for me, I need more information about it, or when do you need me specifically? What do you need me for? What do you need me to do? Once a couple of people do that, it starts to shift the meeting convener's view, and they start to think, oh, maybe I haven't done enough preparation for this yet, or maybe I'm not clear about why I'm having this meeting. And this is the stuff that starts to shift the culture. Simply saying, we're going to become more of an asynchronous organization doesn't, but this is the action of taking that autonomy and agency and going, I need more information about why you want me there and what specifically you want me to do. So even if you aren't going to go into a synchronous meeting or workshop or chat or interview, and even if the convener doesn't have an alternative way to participate, I like to just say, I'll contribute, and you offer it up anyway. Okay, can't come along or won't be attending that meeting. Love to send you my thoughts on it though. And if they're not starting a shared document or a visual collaboration board, you do. You start the document. And I saw this work perfectly just recently. A team leader was pushed back on by some of the staff. And so they set up a document, sent the team the link. Everyone contributed into the document really quickly and easily. This is important, that the task isn't too time, time draining or energy draining. And the team were able to contribute really quickly. And I think this showed the team leader that, I can get contributions without sucking up people's time. So even if there is no option, I hope that we get to the point where meeting invitations, they say yes, no, maybe, and then that there's another option there that says async, and you click that and it takes you to the shared document or the wiki or the visual collaboration tool, or somewhere where you could leave a short Loom video that says, here's my contribution to this. And it prompts your involvement in the process for whatever that meeting or synchronous thing is. And then bring your leadership to this by setting the tone and inviting others. So if you're the convener, you're seeking synchronous work with people. The moment it's difficult to set a time, the moment you're going, no, that doesn't suit, does that suit? Or the moment that you have to reschedule something, to me, is the time when asynchronous work is needed. I explain in the book, I say the best time to set an asynchronous process is before the work's begun. And the second best time is when you're in a really bad meeting, right? And you just go, I'm out of here, I'll contribute asynchronously. And I don't think enough of us hit the leave button. Don't leave right now. I don't think enough people hit the leave button and say, I'll send through my thoughts in other ways. So I reckon we've got to invite other people and set the tone and lead, and do invite people. Yeah, come to this meeting. And if you can't attend, here's how I want you to participate or contribute or add your bit. Here's a way to contribute asynchronously. So some skills to consider. I'll often talk about facilitation as a great skill. I think if you're bringing more asynchronous work to your team, it isn't as easy as, hey, here's a link to a document. Why aren't you filling out that document? Like, it's not. Then people end up with links to all these documents and they have to contribute in all these ways, and they don't know how. They haven't got the wherewithal to do that. I still think we need to facilitate through the process, facilitate the work of asynchronous, which might mean doing a short video to brief people about the project, give them a few options in how to participate. When they do participate and contribute, recognize it, give them some reward to say, hey, thanks, got your contributions in the shared document. Send them an audio message to ask them another question. And so throughout the process of a piece of work, instead of coming in sync and then staying in sync, I say that we can sort of come in sync and then go away again asynchronously and maybe come back again later on in sync. The danger, I think, is if we come in sync and then we find it difficult to do work in other ways. Visual management skills, really important, because they create artifacts that help serve as a memory or serve as the history of what happened in a meeting, workshop, or conversation. Incremental work, agile, people know about this. We know about iterative thinking and working, and we need to apply that also to working in asynchronous ways. So, of course, slice down those tasks even thinner and let people know what it is you're wanting them to participate in and contribute to, and that this is the first draft, or we'll share the second draft and we'll work on the third draft. So we're applying some of the same principles. And then other skills that I think this not only helps, but we can bring more of, is cognitive load coping. This was one of the skills that the Institute for the Future said we'd need at this time. This cognitive load coping and sense making, they work really well together. Cognitive load is being able to empty our full brains of information several times throughout the day. And sense making is that ability to be able to connect the dots and understand what's the deeper meaning of what's going on. And so together they work really well. And when we do more work asynchronously, that is in ways and in times that suit us, work becomes more flexible, and it allows more time for creativity. So creativity for decision-making and creativity for better thinking. And we know that when we're overloaded with information, the last thing we've got space for is to be creative or to come up with some clever solution. So my view is that asynchronous work, it's not just about freeing up some time in your schedule. It's not just about being more inclusive, but it's relieving some of that heavy pressure that people are carrying around, where they say, I don't have the bandwidth for this, or that zombie feeling at the end of the day. It's really reducing or releasing that pressure and giving you opportunities to participate in work and contribute in other ways. So I want to flag another topic just in conclusion, and that is the topic of perfectionism. And it is on the rise, and it's not good news. This was the result of a longitudinal study done over 15 years, I believe, 45,000 participants, and they were able to track what was happening with our attitudes to perfectionism. And the reason I bring it up is that we can sometimes want to control a situation, or we can sometimes expect things to go perfectly or smoothly, and we get a bit annoyed when they don't go smoothly. And the thing is, with asynchronous work, it isn't perfect. It will be bumpy and clunky and a bit messy, and there will be some gaps and holes here. And some people say, oh, let's just go back to having meetings where I can, have control over everybody there, and I can make sure that we get the specific work done. But perfectionism is known as this irrational desire. We want to achieve, but we can also be quite critical of ourselves and of other people. So I certainly am seeing some leaders trying to adopt asynchronous ways of working and getting a little annoyed when people aren't doing it right or it's not happening perfectly. Perfectionists can tell themselves that we need to spend more time on this piece of work, or we do need a 6-hour status meeting. Why don't you just jot your status into a shared document? It will take 3 minutes and we can read it when it suits us. Perfectionists think that if they spend more time on something, it will be better. And this research from Plummer and Wilson showed at the task level, spending more time on something doesn't always result in it being better. So there are different flavors of perfectionism. The first type, where we hold ourselves to very high standards, has been going up. It went up 16% throughout the course of the study, which is high, but it's this middle one, type 2, socially prescribed perfectionism. This is where we have this perception that other people, them, they, out there, whoever they are, have unreasonable expectations for you. And I think this is some of the stuff that can drive that desire to, we've got to have a meeting and I've got to get on top of this and we've got to be in control of that because someone out there expects it to be faultless. And this is the one that's going up at twice the rate of the others. That third type is where we place high standards on other people. It is going up, but it's not as high as the others. So this reveals some mindset stuff, as I mentioned earlier, to think that there is only one way to do this work, to believe that the only way we can do this work is we have to have a briefing meeting is not true. It's incorrect. It is an old mindset. And so the new mindset says, try some other ways, try some newer, better, different, alternative ways of working. And so recently when a client said to me, let's get together and we'll brief you on this, I sent them a list of questions. I said, to help me with my brief, if you can answer these questions. And very quickly they answered the questions and we never needed the briefing. Yes, we never needed that briefing meeting. They got their information across. I got the information I needed to design the workshop, and we didn't even meet before the event. As long as I knew where to show up on the day and I designed the workshop, and I was able to share an agenda with them so they knew what I was going to do. We didn't need to ever have a synchronous piece of communication. It was all async. And in fact, one of the PR guys, Scott Ethorn, the book publicist who I've worked with on a couple of my books, I've never met him and I've never spoken to him on the phone. And I love that our communication and our work, and we won an award for one of the book's publicity. We've achieved so much publicity in book interviews and book articles, yet we've never met and we've never spoken to each other on the phone. And I love that I could walk past him down the street. I don't know who he is. And maybe that's a bad thing. Oh, you should be connected to people and we need this human interaction. We do. But also, we've all got other stuff going on in our lives. And for him and for me, working asynchronously was fantastic. It was such a joy. And so when this book came out, it was a great example of, hey, we've worked on projects together and we've constantly worked asynchronously. We've shared documents, left messages, had a Trello board going with tasks, and it worked well. So there's some of the books that you were teasing me about before, Tony. So Sync Async, that's the latest one, the grey with the pink. The white book, is a reference to the topic of perfectionism. And that's a topic I spoke at Agile USA in 2019, just before the pandemic started. The black book is about cognitive overload and being overloaded with work. And so those three very current, recent, and the other books are around facilitation, sense making, agile, visuals, creativity, and some of my hand-drawn visuals, better ways of working. So I'll pause there and welcome comments, questions, complaints, compliments, all of those things, no matter what you've got to contribute. Love to hear.
Let me be the first to say thank you. And when I was looking at those books, I have a signed copy, I must say, of the the Visual Mojo.
Right. Well, that's 10 years old.
Yes.
That was from 2013, and it's still, I think that sort of skill of the confidence to sketch something out is a big part of asynchronous work, is to go, here's my thinking, I'm sending it through now, or I've uploaded it to the shared document, or I'm drawing it now on the whiteboard.
Yes, I was very lucky. Look, I've got a few questions for you that came through. So first one is about breached boundaries.
Ooh.
And how can we stop that happening? Because it does happen a lot. And so I think
sure does.
Well, there's some techniques from you.
Yes. Breached boundaries. One thing I'd love you to think about for yourself is, if your boundaries have been breached, I love the work of a more of an Instagram person called Hayley Page McGee, and she presents great information on the topic of people pleasing. And I think we can get into that overly servicing or rescuing or overly being, being overly generous, to the point where we sacrifice ourselves in support of someone else, someone else's goal. So my view is, and this is also from my experience, I have been such a people pleaser, and it's only been when I've put in some boundaries. By the way, the boundaries are for me, not for them, right? You don't have to let anybody know what the boundaries are, but you might just say, this week I'm going to do 7 meetings and that's it. Or today I'm going to be in 4 meetings and that's it. Or I'm going to leave this meeting half an hour early. So the boundaries are for you to look out for yourself and know that every time you open the gate or break the fence and other people come in and take advantage, that's what it feels like, take advantage. They're only doing that because you didn't hold the boundary. So a quick response I'll use is, I'd love to contribute to that. I'm available tomorrow afternoon at 3. instead of saying no, or saying, yes, I'll do that, and then being disappointed, is to say, yes, I can do it, and then give them the window of time when you can do it. And I found that makes me feel powerful, and it also satisfies the person who's sort of knocking on the door of the boundary.
That's great advice. I think that links into the next question, which is, which is where you were talking about meetings and pushing back on the meetings. And what happens if I push back and my leaders don't like it? How should I handle that?
Yes. I put some scripts in the book about this, and it's come through practical experience. And the first time you push back is not to say, no, I'm not coming to the meeting, but it's to ask for some more information. So to me, this is a technique which is called clarifying, and it is a facilitation technique. So if I demonstrated it, Tony, could you ask me a question about anything? It doesn't have to be this topic. Just ask me any question and I will demonstrate clarifying.
Sure. Are you related to that famous footballer?
Do you mean the famous footballer Cazaly, or do you mean another famous footballer?
There we go.
See what I did there? So what I did was I've done a very gentle pushback, but it's called clarifying. So all I did was ask a question to get a bit more information. Did you mean? So, if I say, look, I can't come to that meeting tomorrow afternoon, and they go, it's really important for you to be there, then I might come back with clarification. Do you need me to be there for the whole thing? Am I required for the entire meeting, or is there a piece of the agenda where I'm specifically required? And that is the powerful stuff.
Lovely.
That is the powerful stuff. And so you get more, I wouldn't say confident, but once you've used these clarifying questions, you can get really sharp and quick at them, and you'll be slicing through these meeting invites like a ninja.
Well, you can't ask me a clarifying question on these questions because I didn't write them. But
okay.
So I think that plays into the next one, which is how do you balance sync and async? Because it seems to be that there's a lot out of balance.
Yes. Yeah. And if you did look at a seesaw, you'd say that we've had lots of sync for a long time. And I think more remote work has given us the opportunity to do less sync, more async. But unfortunately, that idea of let's just take the face-to-face office and plonk it online is what's led to these days-long meetings. The balance, I think, can be really powerful before a piece of work. It doesn't need to be before a whole project. But let's say you're embarking on a task or a group of tasks, is to just think, as you're looking through those slices of tasks, even if it's on your Kanban board or Trello or wherever, and I'll often put an S for sync and an A for async and go, is this something that absolutely must be done synchronously? And if it does, then I think about what is it? Is it a meeting? Is it face-to-face? Is it online? So I can start to scope that out. But otherwise, most other things, like Steve Glaveski's article, remote work should be mostly asynchronous. So save the synchronous stuff for the really high value things, the things where it's about human connection, or you're going to gather everybody's woohoo creative juju in the one room at the one time, and it's going to be an epic experience. So yeah, there's a balance, but I don't think it has to be an equal balance. There's no rule that says it's 80-20 or it's 70-30. See what you can get away with asynchronously. There's my challenge to you, because it can be incredibly liberating. That's the feedback I'm getting from leaders and managers who've done this kind of training with me, is they're saying their world is just freeing up as they're able to be a bit more air traffic control about the requests that are coming into them.
Brilliant. Okay, I've got time for one more. And
yes.
The last one is, how do we get them to embrace and change their mindsets around this whole meeting? You talked a bit about mindsets. but they're obviously asking a little bit deeper into that, because I can see that that's something that a lot of people are asking.
Yes. One of the things I like to remember and remind myself about change is that some people, like the innovation curve, some people change fairly quickly and readily, and it's important to work with those people because they'll give you momentum. And some people will never change. And I think Jesse Robbins, great software guy, said this, he says, don't fight stupid, right? So don't spend so much of your time like, why won't they change? Why won't they change? Meanwhile, there's been this little group over here who are quite happy to change, and you're not giving them any support or momentum to keep them moving along. That our efforts towards those that will never change could be not only frustrating, can be exhausting, and may result in nothing changing. So I like to remember firstly that innovation curve, that there are some people who are and will change, and get in and work with them. But also remember that in terms of people adopting information and changing their mind, so I used to work in the communication space where I was writing information to change people's behavior. And some people only need to hear information or read information once and they will change. Some people need to hear it many times and then they will change their behavior. And then thirdly, some people need a period of time to have elapsed before they will change. So just remember, there's that whole mix of those sorts of people out in the world. Some people only need to hear or see or read it once. Some people need to hear or see it multiple times. And some people need a period of time to have elapsed so they can process that and get used to the idea. And so if you're trying to make everybody change at once, that's not how change happens in people.
I'll come back to you tomorrow after I've had a chance to process that. Right?
Exactly. I think that's why asynchronous is so good, because you can give those people who need time, the deeper thinkers, that's why I've got a lot of software developers, a lot of introverted, deep analytical thinkers, they need time to think. And asynchronous stuff gives them that, gives them time to go away, think about it, and prepare a really good response. And they do. They usually come with absolute gold, but they don't tend to do that on the spot in a meeting right now.
Lynne, thank you so much. That's the end of the question time, people. It's been fantastic to have you on our All the Remote Things live stream event. You are the inaugural and the first, so thank you so much. I couldn't think of anybody better to have done that for us. One thing before you go, here's what she prepared earlier. How can people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you a bit more about this, or even engage your services?
Yes.
Let everybody know how they can touch base with you.
Sure thing. I put lots of stuff out on LinkedIn, so if that's your bent, you can find me there, Lynne Cazaly, or go to the website, lynnecazaly.com. Contact form there, message me anywhere, asynchronize communication with me. And we won't even need to meet. You watch, we won't even need to meet.
So on that note, I'm going to say thank you for sync and asyncing with us tonight, and a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thanks. See ya.